lovely recording in progress statement that Zoom loves to do. Thank you all for joining us for our community meeting for August 2022. I nearly said September because I believe that the heat will eventually end in Texas. Just a reminder, this is the Pulumi community meeting and it is being recorded. So please be mindful of what you're saying because it will be posted publicly to the internet. And on that note, just as another reminder, we do have a code of conduct, which you're welcome to go find. I believe that is linked in the agenda. If it isn't, please let me know. It is. So this meeting does fall underneath the Pulumi code of conduct. Short version, be excellent to one another. So keep that in mind as we have our discussions today. And on that note, we can get started. This is a small meeting today, so it might be a very short recording. There were some topics posted to talk about updating and contributing to TF2 Pulumi, updating the awesome list, and rating RFCs. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone on the call actually put those topics in, so we might just kind of briefly touch on them and save them for another meeting and then see if there's any open topics for the floor. That being said, no major announcements that I know of. There have been a couple of releases to Pulumi itself for the SaaS product, but from the open source side, it seems like the activity in the repos are doing fairly well. If there's any issues or PRs that we really should talk about, I'd love to highlight them as we get further along in the meeting. But on that note, anybody really desperately want to talk about the TF2 Pulumi or the awesome list one? Or shall we save it for another session?
I actually put in the awesome list one, so.
You did. Okay, well now we know. So let's skip the TF2 Pulumi one unless people are really excited to talk about it right this very minute.
No qualms from me.
Okay, let's move on to the awesome list. Aaron, why don't you tell us a little bit about the awesome list and what you would like to talk about with everyone?
Yeah, there's not much here other than I think there was a community member that originally created the original awesome list, and then I took it over from there, and just as I write the newsletter, I add in new links from time to time. But if but right now it's a grab bag dump of all sorts of content. So I guess the only question, hey, is there stuff, one, is there stuff missing? And two, is there a way to organize it in a way that's even more useful? That's about it. Other than, like, I see a lot of articles about Pulumi up there, and I'll try putting it on there. But if other people see things, love for them to contribute. You're muted.
I just realized that because Zoom gave me that lovely banner right over my face saying, hey, you're muted. Could you grab a link and drop it in the Zoom chat or in the agenda so people know which one you're talking about? Awesome. So this is the Pulumiverse awesome Pulumi link. I will share my screen for like 5 seconds for the recording, just so that folks can see what exactly we are looking at. So here it is. This is the awesome Pulumi list. So it's one of those awesome lists, and it's in the Pulumiverse, which we talked about last time. So obviously this is for everybody to contribute, but it's, if you haven't ever seen an awesome list before, it's resources, books, tutorials, anything that someone puts together, but that includes tools and libraries. So if you want to see something really awesome to go dig into, hardy. I won't be too awkward.
I guess, Sean, have you ever seen this list before?
And I turned on camera, but not my mic. Here we are. I have not actually taken a look at these, although I'm quite familiar with quite a few things on here. This is quite neat.
Yeah. Awesome lists are cool. They do get unwieldily large. So if there's another way, if people have other ideas on how we should organize this, could be good. Like right now, it's a mixture of, I think, cloud providers and then like content type, but as with all these things, there's probably a million different ways that you can organize it.
Yeah, I'll take a read through and see if there's any better way to organize it. Yeah, I'll let you know once I read through that, but it does look pretty great so far. I know I've read some things that I think I'm not seeing here, so maybe just contributing as well would be a good idea.
Yeah, just do a pull request, like someone from the Pulumiverse governance board will probably merge it like within a day. So it should be pretty good. Yeah, the miscellaneous section is literally it's everything. So there's no rhyme or reason there. I yeah, a great question is, what is the providers section actually? I think a lot of these just actually all end up in the Pulumiverse anyway, but how do we build? We should probably build that section out bigger. There's probably stuff that exists in people's own repos that we can probably put in there. That'd be cool. And yeah, the libraries one is, and pretty sure there's a lot more out there for the libraries one and for tools. So as people discover new things, make a pull request and just add it in. Should be easy. I'm pretty sure this list could double and we can use the current format. But once it doubles, we'll probably need to have a wiser way of organizing.
Yeah, perhaps some
Well.
sort of GitHub pages, though I have seen, frankly, a huge amount of awesome lists that just remain as a single README. So,
What
Yeah,
have you ever
we'll
seen the
see.
AWS Awesome list?
oh, I think I have. It
That
is.
one is unbelievably large.
My browser is just hanging while I load the page. So,
Maybe that's
Yeah,
why.
it's not
Yeah.
loading either for me. The AWS Awesome list.
I actually think GitHub might be having some issues today, but that's a separate story.
Ah, okay.
Which
Well,
which AWS one are you loading? The
It is
Don Martin?
Donna Martin. Yep.
Yeah. I thought I thought Corey Quinn. No, who, I'm trying to think who had one. There's probably a few of these at this point.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Yeah, GitHub is definitely having some issues. I'm looking for other awesome lists to compare the formats, but
No.
They're not reporting their
That one,
systems down yet on their status page, but I'm sure they will shortly.
yeah, when I
Have you
looked at
gotten the
the
unicorn
AWS,
yet?
what'd you say? The
What?
unicorn?
The GitHub unicorn saying we're having trouble.
I haven't seen that
No.
yet.
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, when I looked at the AWS Awesome list a while back, it was organized by AWS services. So you can only imagine how immensely troubling that was.
Oh yeah.
Because
Not
there's like what is it now, like 200 300 services, so
yeah.
it was broken into sections by that. It's
I think
probably
what's difficult about awesome lists
Oh.
in general,
no
hierarchies
servers
affect.
currently available to service.
Oh no.
Yep, I'm
You getting the unicorn?
no, the unicorn picture doesn't even show. Oh, it just
Wow.
loaded.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'm getting that too. But yeah, their cluster must be having some issues. It doesn't look like a networking problem.
It happens.
This is not
But
the main one.
I think the difficult thing is structuring it in a way that people can actually go through and get, I don't know, meaningful information out of it. Because when
Yeah.
it's just largely structured with broad things like libraries and tools and stuff like that, while it's small, I guess that's fine, but then it doesn't look too impressive. But as it gets larger, it becomes hard to read through. I don't know, trying to find a way where you can browse it in an intentional way. But at that point, just look at the docs. You've got a great way to
Mhm.
search through your blog posts and things like that. So
Yep. Well, yeah, no, appreciate you looking at it. So just let me know. Ping me
Yeah.
on community Slack if you want to chat directly, or
Yeah.
we'll collaborate.
yeah, I'll
Ping
read
in
through
the
it more
public channel
thoroughly.
though. Ping in
You
the
got
public
it.
channel.
What would be a good
Anyway.
channel for that?
I bet you though that now that I'm thinking about it, a simple static site GitHub pages like you were mentioning, Sean, with
Might
a
look a little better.
simple search on it might actually make it a lot easier. We could also do
Yeah.
collapsible sections, so you can just open up the section you want. Actually, you can do that on readmes. Use the
Ooh.
details summaries tag. I
True.
do it a lot.
Yeah.
So that's another way we could actually build that out.
What
Huh.
would be a good place to communicate on that in Pulumi's Slack?
Probably contribute. I would do it in the contribute channel.
Yeah,
Awesome.
contribute's probably good.
You got it.
Get the chatty going on in there.
You could do that or Pulumiverse. Either one works for me.
Oh, I keep forgetting about the Pulumiverse channel. Kind of want to like smush the two together, but I know they're separate. So, all right. Do we want to talk about RFCs? I don't even know what the topic was because this was from 2 months ago. We'll save it. We'll save it for next time. Any other topics people would like to toss out onto the floor?
Maybe at some point, something like local development emulation with Pulumi. I know there's local stack and stuff like that, but we are at the company that I work for doing a lot of Pulumi, spinning up a lot of staging environments, and we're starting to try to figure out how we can integrate Pulumi for local development for spinning up stuff like our event bus, our queues, our things like that. Local stack looks like an okay solution. Just in general, how we could do integrated developer environments with Pulumi and sort of have parity with what we're more or less throwing up in staging. But that's more of a broad subject. Yeah. We don't have to talk about that. Just wanted to put that out there as something that we're looking into right now.
Very cool. Ian, would you know more about what we have in that like world and like what kind of development open source side people could get involved in?
Could you?
I'm not entirely sure because I'm not entirely sure I understand the use case. Is this spinning up local resources essentially? Or
Yes,
is it...
exactly. So versus say taking existing code to structure an application and changing the target rather than putting it up to AWS, and then a way to make that viable. So currently the way that you do it is you essentially change the URL for the providers to point to use HTTP locally rather than the remote endpoints, and that is fine. I'm just curious if that's the most ergonomic way to do this, or if there's a more ergonomic way if, for example, rather than providing the configuration for the providers directly within the YAML file, we were to make provider objects and dynamically pass in those new endpoints through those provider objects versus just using the global provider when you configure it through the YAML, if that makes sense. I think that littering the YAML with a bunch of like point to local stack can get a little messy, and if anything, a bit confusing.
I can't think of a more ergonomic way to do it. My personal preference is to have explicit providers and pass them around. But I think that is a taste thing. I don't have an excellent like, you should do X because X will always be better.
Totally.
It's an interesting case. This is essentially, yeah, the interesting point that this brings up for me is that if you have a mix and match of explicit and default providers, it's going to be very unideal. You'll create some resources locally and you'll create other resources in the actual cloud, and that is certainly not what you want.
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Sorry.
No, go on.
And then potentially some variation in which you enable, I don't know, some kind of strict mode where you disallow entirely the global providers such that you can ensure that you can write something that only uses explicit providers. And if you accidentally don't pass in a provider, you throw, kind of thing like that. So that you don't accidentally get into a situation where you forgot to pass that extra option. And then you've got a weird thing that's hard to debug.
That we do have actually.
Awesome. And what would that be called? So I can research it?
That is an option called disable default providers.
Awesome.
It does exactly what you talked about.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then the only other thing that I think would be interesting to discuss, not even today, at some point, would be we're considering configuring a more JSON or structural representation of our infrastructure. What we found is some people we are a closure shop largely, and most people don't want to delve into the TypeScript Pulumi end. They view it a little bit as like a black hole of confusion because they feel like Pulumi is a very new company, new structure, things like that, and they find it intimidating for that code to get into. So something we've been playing with is the idea of creating, for example, a JSON structure of how to configure services, their order of spin up, and what services are actually running, and then configure Pulumi through that. I know that Pulumi has a YAML offering, but I don't know exactly what the details of that are for if we wanted to have custom resources and custom dynamic providers, if that YAML would still support it, or if that YAML only supports existing resources. So that's just another thing we've been playing with.
I can actually answer the YAML question relatively easily, which is YAML does not support control flow. And it does, to the best of my knowledge, support everything else. It talks to the engine the same way TypeScript or Go does. It actually uses Go under the hood as its method of talking to the engine. So if you have an arbitrary, newly created custom resource that you have just built a provider for, it will work fine. If you have component resources, it will also work fine. So that is actually fully featured if you want to do it. And you can also use
Awesome.
JSON or compile your JSON dialect into YAML, and there's support for that as well.
I greatly appreciate that information. I think that that's all I've got on my mental docket at the moment.
All right. Excellent. Well, if we are kind of good on the contribution stage, feel free to keep talking in the contribute channel, not the contributors channel, but the contribute channel, or the Pulumiverse channel. There's always lots of discussion there. Hopefully next month we will have more discussion, but thank you all for joining us for our second monthly community contributor meeting. And I did not trip over it this time, so that's exciting. Yay. And hopefully I will see you all around on the internet. If you are watching this and you would like to join us next time, join the Pulumi community Slack and come find us in the contribute channel. Thank you so much for watching and joining us, and I will see you next time.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.